Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Sean, and I'm delighted you're joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Jamal Abed, MVP, who will cover Mastering Cloud Storage with SharePoint Embedded, a modern approach. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar. Our handle is @ESPC_community and our hashtag is #ESPC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Building Copilot Studio Plugins with Albert Jan Schott, MVP. This webinar will take place Monday, the 7th of April, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. CET. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. Team discounts for EPPC 25. Save 15% on 3 to 5 tickets or 20% on 6+. Join 120 plus expert sessions, learn and network. Just add your team at the checkout. The discount applies automatically. Book now at www.sharepointeurope.com/European Power Platform Conference. At FabCon Europe, you can learn about Power BI, Synapse, Data Factory, Azure, Microsoft Fabric, and more. Book your super early bird sale today and save up to €700. Book now at www.sharepointeurope.com/European Microsoft Fabric Community Conference tickets. Celebrate big, save bigger. 50% off ESPC 25. Microsoft turns 50 and we're celebrating with an exclusive offer. 50 lucky winners will get 50% off their ESPC 25 ticket. Want in? Simply sign up for a chance to win, and on April 2nd, 50 winners will be randomly selected and receive an exclusive 50% off code. Don't miss out. Sign up now at www.sharepointeurope.com/ESPC 50 for 50. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in the questions box and Jamal will get to them during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, but you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now, I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Jamal. Hello, Jamal. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for joining us today at this webinar. So I will share my screen. I'll start the presentation. Can you see my screen? So, okay, I'll just put it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending my session today. Joining us to this webinar. Today, I will talk about about subject, about mastering cloud storage with SharePoint Embedded and different way, modern approach. So I will talk about myself. My name is Jamal Abed. I'm Microsoft 365 freelancer. So I live in France and Belgium, and I was born in Tunisia. I have been working with SharePoint since the year 2007. I'm a Microsoft MVP on Microsoft 365 development and SharePoint. And you have my LinkedIn and my X if you want to ask me anything about SharePoint Embedded, so I'll answer for free. And last year, I was selected as the most active speaker for the year 2024. And actually, I'm the first speaker on the community days about the last year session in person worldwide. So before start my session, I want to share with you my session in South Korea last year. It's not generated by AI. It was at Microsoft Office. And I was talking about how to manage container about SharePoint with SharePoint Embedded, and I had a nice view with this office. So the agenda for today. Today I will talk about the problem facing with our company, our organization, in managing application and data. And later I will talk about SharePoint Embedded in general, and I will talk about the architecture of SharePoint Embedded, and I will share with you some concept. And as a Microsoft product, there is a cost, so I will talk about the cost of SharePoint Embedded and how to manage it with the administration aspect. And if you are a developer, I will share with you how to start develop on it. And I'll share you the develop experience and the main tools to start with it. And also I will share with you the main PowerShell and Graph API call. And I will make a demo and I will share with you. I will show you how it's work, the Graph API, how it's work with SharePoint Embedded and everything. And if you have any question at any time, you can ask me at any time and I can answer during the session. So let's talk about the company challenge managing application and data. And before I start the presentation, I want to let you know how the storage is allocated for your tenant. If you have an idea, for each tenant, Microsoft 365 tenant, we have 1 terabyte free for storage, and for each extra user, we will have 10 gigabyte for each user with license. And for example, if you have a company with 200 users licensed under E3, you will have 3 terabyte. It's very important to know about the cost of the storage because many customers they said they say that the storage is free, but it's not free. When you exceed the free storage, you will pay extra. So if you exceed this storage, you will pay 20 cents monthly for each gigabyte. And I will share with you a real customer scenario. So I am working with a customer in France, and we are sharing one tenant with 300,000 users, and we are developing many applications for all the business units across France. And we are developing Power Apps. We are storing file inside SharePoint site. We are developing SPFX project, and all the application depend on SharePoint site for file storage. And the challenge we are facing every month, as we are sharing only one tenant, many business units, they say, will not pay for the extra storage. Other, they suggest to pay just for each user. And it's very difficult for us every month to have a clear cost for each application. We have the clear cost for the application when you build it, but for the run for each application, it's very difficult in terms of storage to find the clear way to say for each business unit how much it costs your application. And also there are many business units, they don't trust AI. They said we need our data to be isolated from Copilot, from any from other AI tools, and other they want their data used by AI to enhance their work and everything. And as you can see, as many customers share only one tenant, it's very difficult to have the costs to have the cost of each application. So our need is to have a solution like SharePoint, to work like SharePoint site, like SharePoint document library, and this solution can also address concern about AI and keep the file secure with the Microsoft 365 security and compliance for each for our customer rules. And this why I'm talking about SharePoint Embedded today, and I will show you how it's possible with SharePoint Embedded to achieve this goal and to secure your data inside with your tenant. If you have any question, feel free to answer. And now I will talk about what is it SharePoint Embedded. SharePoint Embedded, it's Microsoft solution announced last year. It was in public preview in November 2023 and in general availability in May 2024. SharePoint Embedded allow your application to create a dedicated partition inside your tenant. And this partition, we name it container. When you want to compare to SharePoint site, a container, it's like SharePoint document library, but not attached to one site. It's inside your tenant. And all the containers stay inside your tenant. And we are talking only about file document centric solution. We are talking about file, and all the and to access to this file, it's done by Graph API. So you develop your application, you use your application to manage storage inside the container. Unlike SharePoint, for example, we have UI. You can create your document library, you can upload your file, but in case of SharePoint Embedded, you have your application developed, or you can use Power Apps, and The application is Azure application. Power Apps use Azure application to use Graph API to store file inside your tenant. And also, all the container are linked to container type. A container type, it's like a collection of container, and all the content inside your tenant, all the feature like security, versioning, sharing, collaboration, purview, sensitive label are available for your content. It's behaved the same way when you work with SharePoint site. Imagine, for example, when you create a file inside your SharePoint document library, if your company has many compliance rule like sensitive label, the same thing work for SharePoint Embedded. So you have nothing to do because the container resides inside your tenant. So all the compliance security rules are available for your content inside SharePoint Embedded content. And it's very important for the container content. The storage are not part of Microsoft 365 storage for your tenant, as I talked about in the first slide. You will pay for this data as you go. And I will share with you, I have one screen about how to calculate the cost of your data and pay as you go for this data, except Microsoft application. As you know, for example, if you know Copilot pages, when you, for example, it's Microsoft application, when you search something with Copilot, you can edit this search result and you can share it with other users. What happened behind the scene when you use Copilot pages? Copilot page create one container. It's already we have already one container, but store the loop component, page loop component inside this container. And for the Microsoft application use your actual storage code. For example, here on the SharePoint Admin Center, if you on the top right of your page, you'll see the container here. For example, the container use 700 gigabytes, and here the container of SharePoint of Microsoft application. So for your application, you will pay as you go. And here, for example, I took an example for my SharePoint Admin Center. And here, as you can see on the left, I have on the left navigation, I have container, and I have active container, delete container, and here I have all the container inside my tenant. And here, as you can see, for the page container, it's Microsoft application. And here, all the pages are stored inside this container for Copilot pages, for example. And here on the top right, I have 1 terabyte and 50 gigabyte. And for this tenant, I have only 5 users with under license E3. And also for the container, we can add sensitive label, and also the sensitive label you can apply for your file. Here I will, okay, I think we have a question. Okay, no, it's okay. Okay, I will share my screen, sorry. Okay, just I will, cannot, I need to check my screen. Okay, now I can see my screen. Okay, now I will talk about how everything is situated inside your tenant. As you know, everything is running on Microsoft Cloud. The infrastructure, it's Microsoft Cloud. And our platform as a service, in this layer, we found the Microsoft 365 security and compliance. And on the top of this layer, we have our content inside SharePoint Embedded. That means all the compliance rules for your company are available for your content. It's the same level. We will find the SharePoint document library and OneDrive and everything. And on the top layer, we have the experience. The experience we have is split on 2 parts. We have the custom application. Custom application, it's your application developed by your company, and the application purchased from third party, from other company like ISV or something like this. And on the right, we have the Microsoft 365 application. We have Loop, we have SharePoint, we have Microsoft Designer, and here we have Edge Workspace. when I delivered many sessions about SharePoint Embedded, all the attendees, they don't know about Edge Workspace. And I will talk about Edge Workspace because it uses SharePoint Embedded. And why the experience, it's divided on two parts, because on the left application, on the left part for your custom application or the application purchased from ISV, you will pay for the data as you go. And on the right, for the Microsoft 365 application, the content used or managed by this application, it will use your storage, Microsoft 365 storage. And now I'll talk about Edge Workspace. For each user with license with your company, if you look into with Edge, you will have an icon here, Workspace. Workspace, it's like a collection of tabs, and when you create a workspace, this workspace is stored inside your tenant in a container. And this workspace, you can share it with many users. For example, when you work on different projects with many teams, it's better to create a workspace and you share all the link for this project. For example, here for a personal example for me, I create a workspace for learning. For learning, I have 7 sites, so I shared the 7 tab and something to do, the event and everything. So you can try it and you will find it's helpful for your project and for your learning, for everything. So now I want to show you how to access the data to SharePoint Embedded. Before we talk about SharePoint Embedded, if you want to store file in your tenant, you can store it in SharePoint document library. You create your site and SharePoint document library, and you store your file. And also, we can store this file inside for each user inside your company within your organization. Each user has personal OneDrive, so you can store the file in the OneDrive. But if you want to share it with others, you can share it. And now we have SharePoint Embedded. SharePoint Embedded.
Sorry, Jamal, there's just a question there, if that's okay.
Okay.
How does saving loop pages differ from saving loop workspaces, or are they the same?
It's the same. Loop use when you use loop, it creates a loop component or workspace, and this workspace is stored inside container.
Amazing, thank you.
Okay. And on the right, I can see the question. Yes. Okay. If you have any. Okay. Okay, it's okay. So now I'll check my screen. Okay. And here I will show you, before we learn, we know about SharePoint Embedded. If you have file in SharePoint document library, you can open online. You can open this file with Microsoft Office app. So here you can access. You can open file stored in OneDrive online or the Office app. The same thing in document library. But for SharePoint Embedded, it's different because we use Microsoft Graph API. Graph API, we can use Graph API to access file to SharePoint, OneDrive, or container. And who use Graph API? Your SharePoint Embedded application use Graph API to manage file inside SharePoint Embedded container. So unlike SharePoint, we don't have a UI to access to it. So your application, for example, when you use Power Apps, develop application with Power Apps. Power Apps use the SharePoint Embedded application to use which use Graph API to manage file inside your SharePoint Embedded. So you need to develop your UI to access this file. And it's very important for user for company. They want to isolate their data. They are doing the same. So they don't want, for example, someone with SharePoint site link to access, for example, to SharePoint document library. And I will talk more about SharePoint Embedded application. So when you talk about SharePoint Embedded, we have many things. We talk about SharePoint Embedded application, container type, file storage container, and we have the file. What is it, SharePoint Embedded application? It's simple way, it's Microsoft Azure application. By default, this application has control on your content, your container, and it manages container. And Microsoft has introduced a new Graph API permission to allow your application to manage container. This permission, Graph API permission is file storage container.selected. And for each application, we have only one container type. And here I took a screenshot from my Azure portal. And as you can see, here I have the permission for Microsoft Graph. I add this permission for my application, Graph API, file storage container.selected. And the file storage container, it's a dedicated partition for your application. It's like SharePoint document library, but SharePoint document library, it's created with SharePoint side. But the container, it's created inside your tenant, associated to your application. And here is a sample ID for your container. For example, when you work with Loop on the link of you will find something like this. For example, this the sample of each container ID. And all the application can create multiple container, and we can create for each application, for each tenant, we can create 100,000 container for this application. For example, when you use Microsoft Copilot pages, Copilot page, it's Microsoft application, and when you save your application, the works, the page, it's saved inside your tenant. You are the customer. So, for example, when you compare Microsoft Copilot pages, this application can create for each customer maximum 100,000 container. And this, if you have any need to increase this number, you can talk to Microsoft to it. They're open to increase for each customer if you have more needs, more than 100,000 container. And all the container are associated to one container type. We cannot find inside your tenant a container without, it's not associated to one container type. So it's like SharePoint document library. It's all the time, it's linked to SharePoint side. And all the access, it's with Graph API. And also for all your content inside your SharePoint embedded container, the Microsoft, we have the same feature for the file, for everything. For example, if you have Word document, Office document, you will have the feature for versioning, sharing, and everything. So nothing changed. If you are familiar with SharePoint document library or OneDrive, you will have the same feature for your file inside SharePoint container, SharePoint embedded container, because we stay inside your tenant. We are not outside. And also for each container, we can store maximum 25 terabyte. 25 terabyte. It's like the limitation of SharePoint site, for example. And the container type, it's identifier for your application. It's unique. That means it's like tenant ID. We cannot find two tenant ID, two tenant ID with the same ID. So it's unique, and it's created within the provider tenant. For example, when you use Copilot pages, it's Microsoft, the provider, and it's registered with your consumer tenant. You are the consumer. For example, when you develop also your application, Azure application, it's, for example, for your in-house application, we are using a single tenant application. So you are the provider and the consumer at the same time. And for each file storage container, it's linked only to one container type. So you have your application, it's linked to only one container type. And for each container type, you can create multiple container. And also allow Microsoft to calculate the cost for the data stored with your container. Container type, it's like a collection of container. And the file, and now the file are supported with SharePoint embedded containers like SharePoint document library, and all the feature, versioning, collaboration, and everything are available for your content. And also for each file stored inside your container, each file has an ID, and it's very important. As you can see here, I use Postman to add the file, And the file ID, it's like this. So it's very important. For example, when you work with Power Apps, develop many applications with Power Apps, you need to query your file. So you have an option. You can query your file by ID. So you can query your file by name, by title, everything. But you can also query it. It's simple to query it by ID. Or when you add the file, you can save the ID in database or like something like this. And here I will talk about some concept. So, for example, when you work with SharePoint Embedded, you talk about the developer tenant, the provider. When you use Copilot Pages, Microsoft, the provider. The consumer tenant, when you use Copilot Page, for example, you are the consumer. And we are talking about single tenant application. If you develop only in-house application, it's better to have your single tenant application. Or for example, if you are ISV, you need to sell your application to many consumers. It's we talk about multi-tenant application. It's like Copilot Pages. It's used by many consumer tenants worldwide. And here I want to show you an example. Here, for example, I took an example of 2 applications and 3 tenants. As you can see on the left, I have one application. It's used by only one tenant. And we have this application, manage container inside this tenant. And on the right, I have application number 2. It's used by 2 tenants. And here, as you can see, all the time, the content stay inside your tenant. It's very important. So when you create, for example, when you use, for example, Microsoft application like Copilot Page, the page is stored inside your tenant, not inside other tenant. And also, it's also a way, for example, if you want to migrate your data one day, for example, when you use your application, the data stay all the time inside your tenant. And also, it's very important, for example, if you are ISV, you are developing many applications to many customers. For example, for each customer has different compliance rule. And when you develop the application, you don't need to manage this compliance rule with your application. But when you store the file, each customer has different rules. So for example, if for application number 2, store file inside the tenant number 2, and the customer for the tenant number 2 has apply sensitive label for specific file. So it will apply for the file used with this application. And container permission. So we have 4 levels of permission. We have the owner. He has full control of the container. He can delete, manage the container. And we have the manager. Manager can add permission or update permission of the container and the content. And we have the editor. Editor can only manage or add content inside the container, but not managing the property of the container. And we have the reader. The reader can only view the property of the container and the file. And as you know, for example, in SharePoint site, we have many levels of permission. We have the SharePoint site permission. We have for a document library permission. And if you have folder inside the document library, you have permission on this folder. And you have also permission on the file. So in SharePoint, we have a feature we can broke this permission to apply unique permission. Unlike SharePoint, we don't have this with SharePoint Embedded. We can add, delete, or edit the permission for each container, for each file inside your container. And also we can apply custom property. Custom property, like for example, when you work with SharePoint document library, the property, it's like title description, but here for your container, we can add as many property. For example, if you want to create container for the finance business unit, we can add the container and add the property department, finance, or something like this. And also, for each property, we can say if it's searchable or not. So we can disable the search by this property for your container. And the property are very useful when you work, when you want to query your container. And here I have an example. Here I have my query for the container. And add here, as you can see, I have a property department, and the value it's fine. So I put is searchable true. And we have container fields also. Unlike SharePoint, as you know, in SharePoint we have the lookup field, but in SharePoint embedded container we have only Boolean, that time, currency, choice, hyperlink or picture, number, person or group, or text. So it's the same thing. If you are familiar with SharePoint document library, we have field, we have column for each for your container. It's behaved the same way. So, and this value are available for your file inside your container. And now I will talk about SharePoint Embedded Administration. So when you want to administrate SharePoint Embedded, we have four ways to do it. So we have PowerShell. You can do it on SharePoint Admin Center, and also in Purview also, because when you want to apply sensitive label for your container and for your file, and with Microsoft Graph API. And Microsoft has introduced a new permission. This permission is SharePoint Embedded Administrator. When you have this role, we can only manage the container with the customer tenant. And it's very important if you want to separate the role of each SharePoint administrator. We can keep the classic SharePoint administrator. He can manage everything, but with this role, he has only the ability to manage container with your tenant. And here, for example, I took a screenshot about of global SharePoint classic admin. On the left, as you can see, I can see everything. So I have the active site, the container, and here I have access to the same page with a different role, SharePoint Embedded Administrator. As you can see, this administrator can only manage the container. So the difference here, we have site and everything, policy, setting and everything. But here, it's very important for company or for organization who want to split the role, so to separate the role for each administrator. And the cost of SharePoint Embedded. Now we'll talk about the cost. So we have two options of SharePoint, two versions of SharePoint Embedded. We have the trial version. For each container, we can create your container type, and it's valid only for 30 days. But if it expires, you can delete it and create another container type. And we can create maximum 5 container, and each container is limited to 1 gigabyte. It's help for organization to test and to check SharePoint Embedded without cost. And we have the standard container type. You pay for via Azure subscription for it. And the cost for SharePoint Embedded, we pay for the data. You pay as you go. The cost is per gigabyte per day. It's this price. And also you will pay for Graph API permission. So Graph API permission, it's only the call from your application. And here the question, I have the question all the time with my attendee. They said, so it costs, so I will store my file in SharePoint document library. But here it depends. I'm developer. I advise all the time my customer, if you want to develop an application to manage file for example, 5 years, 10 years. For example, with my actual customer, we develop application for 15 years or 20 years to manage for the construction of nuclear plant across France. So imagine you have a project, but the user need to access to this file only 2 times, for example, per month. So the question, why assigning licenses for this user per month to access this file? So it will cost less expensive to store your file in SharePoint Embedded. So we will pay only when you use it. So, for example, if you develop one project and you need to access file every day, it's better to stay in SharePoint document library. For example, if you want to develop a project to store file, but you don't need the security level, for example, for sensitive label or something like this. So it's better to store your file in Azure Blob Storage. So it depends for each application. You need to calculate everything. And here, for example, for this price per day, if I check this price per month, it's 20 cents. It's the same price, same price when you exceed the free storage quota for your tenant. It's 20 cents. So, and now I will share with you the developer experience. How, if you want to start to work on SharePoint Embedded, how you can start to work on it. So we can use Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code, you need the SharePoint Embedded extension. So you search SharePoint Embedded, and you'll find here the Visual Code extension. Once installed, you can create your trial container type. And here, for the developer purpose, when you want to start to check, and here it's the second option to create the trial container type, but it's work the same way. And also, if you know Postman, you can use Postman to test your query, and you will find with this link all the query or the API possible for your to work with SharePoint Embedded. As you can see here, for example, to list all the list container, we can use this query. And here I will share with you some PowerShell command, and I will show you on demo how it's work. So as I said, we can create two types of SharePoint Embedded. We have the trial version and the standard version. To create the trial container type, you use PowerShell with this command. You say new SPU container type. You specify its trial container type name, and the application ID. So as I said, you have your application, and you create your container type. And after, you create your container. And to create the standard container type, you need to specify the container type name, the application ID, the Azure subscription, and your resource group and the region. So after this session, I will share with you the slide, the presentation, and you can check all the time this link. And now I will show you in demo how it's work. If you have any question, let me know. So here I will. Okay.
There's just a question there, Jamal, if that's okay.
Okay.
How does SharePoint Embedded compare to OneDrive and other cloud storage solutions?
It depends. For example, if you for OneDrive, it's when you store file for OneDrive, it's you need to share your file with other user, it's because OneDrive it's like personal you have for each company. But my advice, for example, it's when you have many files to store, it's better, and you don't need the compliance rule like sensitive label. It's better to work with Azure Blob Storage. It costs less expensive than SharePoint Embedded, and then SharePoint Site, and then OneDrive. And also when you work with OneDrive and SharePoint Document Library, it's at the same level, so the same level of security. But for each user for each tenant, it's document library you can share it with other user, but the OneDrive it's for each user with your tenant. He has OneDrive storage for it. I don't think I. No.
Amazing, thank you.
It's a clear. Okay. And here I will check where is. Okay. Here, for example, I have my Visual Studio Code. On the left, I have SharePoint Embedded extension. So I create here. I have my container type. I already create my container type. It's expire in 30 days, and it's very powerful. When you right click on it, you can export all the environment setting. The environment setting, it's a file. You can find this file. We have you have the application ID, we have the certificate, we have everything, and this file you can import it to your Postman. In Postman, as here, for example, I have many environment. As you can see in Postman, you can use many environment setting. And here I import my SharePoint embedded collection. And here, for example, I need to query my tenant to check all the container. As you can see, in the collection on the left, I have I click on list container, and here I have the query. So Postman, it's very powerful if you want to test your query before use this query in your development project. And here, for example, I will send the query, and here it will return. In this tenant, I have only one container associated with my container type. As you can see, the ID, it's like this. If you want to check in the browser on the container, I will just bring my container. Here, for example, I have my SharePoint Admin Center. As you can see, I have this container, USPC for finance. It's the same, as you can see, it's the same USPC finance. And here, for example, I will show you, I want to create one container. For example, to create a container, I will select on the left the API to create a container. And here I have three attributes for it. For example, I want to create ESPC for web for demo, for example. And here the description is ESPC for demo. And here I have the container type ID. Container type ID, it's already in my environment file. As you can see here, I select to SPC and my environment file. I have my container type ID. Here I will send the query. It's a post, and I will wait. And here it creates my container. So I have the ID. If I want to check in my admin center here I will just refresh the page. I will see I have a second container. As you can see, there is a container created here. And in the UI also you can add permission here, and you have setting and everything. For example, if I want to add file to this container, here it's simple in the Postman collection. There is a section file here, upload the file. So I will select upload. As you can see, it's very powerful. We have all the API call with this Postman collection. Here, for example, to upload the file, I need to just to check here. I will take one file from my computer, and here I will specify, for example, for the file, for example, PDF, and here I will send the file. Here I will show you for each file I have an ID. So here when I execute the query, the file it's added to my container ID, and for the attribute, I have the ID. As you can see, I have the ID for my my file added to this container. So it's very powerful, this ID. You can use it to query the file. It's better than query a file by the title or by your name. And you have also all the permission, all the query on the left. So if you want to for example, here I will just, for example, list container. I execute this query before I create the second container. Here I will execute it again. I will find I have two containers. Yeah, as you can see, I have SPC for demo. I have SPC for finance. So, and here I have a second tenant. As you can see, for this tenant, I have three container. And here for the page, if you are a SharePoint administrator, for the page, it's the container for the Copilot pages. As you can see, the publisher Microsoft and the application name loop, and all the files are stored here for the Copilot. All the Copilot pages are stored inside this container. And here, for example, this tenant, I have the storage. I have 1 terabyte. Because this tenant, I have only one. I have only 5 users with license E3. So I will for the storage. I have only 50 gigabyte plus 1 terabyte. So with Postman, we can start working with your SharePoint embedded content. You will find everything. If you want, for example, add the column, you can search here. For example, column, you'll find the query associated to it. Okay. Do you have any question now after this demo?
Yeah, there's a question in there, Jamal, if that's okay.
Okay.
Can you please give examples of good use cases for SharePoint Embedded and advantages of using it over services like AWS or Google Storage?
Okay, you need connector for it, but now we don't have connector for it. So I have no idea about the cost of the file with AWS, but we need to calculate. So, for example, in Microsoft, I don't think there is a need from AWS to store file in SharePoint Embedded. I don't think it's useful use case for it. So it's better to stay inside this environment. If you work with Microsoft, we have, for example, Teams, we have SharePoint, we have everything. It's better to stay inside Microsoft store. But now we don't have a container to query. There is no connector to query the content inside the tenant from outside it. Because when you talk of Graph API it's inside your tenant. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I will just share my screen. Okay. And here we can we'll have inside the presentation we'll have all the query the PowerShell. For example, if you want to retrieve container type with PowerShell, we can use this command to say get SPO container type, and we'll have we have the query. But with the Graph API, the same thing. For example, if you want to check to the container type, we have this query. For example, here this query to find we have container type ID. When you search for your container associated to your consumer tenant, we present the app ID, and here we have the result. And here I put many examples, so it's very helpful for you. For example, if you want to create a container, as I show you in the demo, we can display on the attribute, you can specify the display name, description, and your container type ID. Here the query and the result, as I show you on Postman. It's a result like this. So we have the ID, and here, for example, if you want to update a container, for example, you need to update the name. So you can update the name and the description. And then we have the result. So the result will have updated container. Okay, so this means so okay. And here, for example, if you want to retrieve container, we have PowerShell and the Graph API. So I put, for example, for each the correspondence with the PowerShell and Graph API. If you want to delete a container, the same thing. We can delete a container, but permanently, and you can delete a container, but it stay inside your tenant for 30 days, and after it will be deleted. So, as you can, for example, if I return to my SharePoint admin center, as you can see here, I have the active container, and also I have the deleted container. So We'll have the two version of container, the active and the deleted. So, okay. And to manage container permission, I put all the query here and container custom property. So all this query, you will find it in Postman collection. So, and you can work with container. So if you have any question before I go to the conclusion. No, there is no. Do you have a question?
Yeah, there's a question here. Yeah.
Okay.
So just great session. How to read files like Word and Excel? Do I need to retrieve the link with Graph API?
Yes. Okay, I will show you now. Okay, I will show you. For example, here I will return to my my Postman. In Postman, I will list container. Here I will check my container. So here I will search for file. So now I'll show you in demo how the link for the file. So I will go to the file section here and I will search for the query. The query it's upload the file. And here, because I upload the file, PDF file, I will show you. I will search for one. I will create one Word document, for example. I'll put it SPE, SPC demo. So Word document. It's a great question because I will show you why. And here I will the name it's SPE, and here I will send the queries. Here I will upload my my Word document, and here, as you can see, I have the link to download the file and also the web URL. Here, if I take this link, as you can see, all the file inside SharePoint Embedded, we have after your tenant, we have content storage. If you find a link with content storage, it's SharePoint Embedded. Here I will take this link. I will open in browser, and I will show you here. I will put this link. And here the file, I have the file. As you can see, my file is stored inside SharePoint Embedded container. Here, as you can see, the link content storage. And also, this file, you can share it with other user. And the other user, they don't need Office license to open it. So as you pay as you go for the content. So to open this file, you don't need Office licenses to open it. So it's different when you work in SharePoint library. To open the file, you need the Office license for it. So it's okay for.
Perfect.
Okay. And all the time when you find content storage, everywhere it's SharePoint Embedded. And here's the conclusion. So as I work with many customers, and all the time they say to me, yes, SharePoint is free, so you'll store file inside SharePoint. No, it's not free SharePoint. They store, and SharePoint, you will pay for the extra, and you need to calculate. So if you are a developer, because you are consultant, and you need to advise your customer. So it's not just build the application and later just build the application. You need also to advise the customer how much it costs this application for the next year, next 2 years, next 10 years. So it's better to estimate these costs, and the customer, they like this. So, for example, I work with the application for 15 years, so we need to estimate the cost for the next 20 years, for example. And you need to check if the if the user will access to this file, how often the user will access to this file, and if you want security for this file also, and you can choose the right solution for it. So, and I hope you enjoyed the session. If you here I have some resource. For example, the Postman collection, you can find it. You can put ika.ms sp Postman, and you will find everything on Microsoft Learn. So, and thank you for attending my session. And you have my LinkedIn. If you want to join me to ask anything about SharePoint Embedded, I will be free to answer your question. And here, if you have a question, I'm free to answer.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamal, for a great presentation and demo. So just next question there, Jamal, if that's okay.
Okay.
What security measures does SharePoint Embedded offer to protect sensitive business data?
If you want, for example, to manage costs for your data, as I show in the beginning of my slide, when you work with only one tenant, it's very difficult to estimate the cost for your application. So if you want to isolate also your data, it's better also to work with SharePoint Embedded. So first.
Perfect. So it looks like that's all the questions. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Jamal, for taking time out to take part of this webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for attending and thank you for this opportunity.
So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again for all of you for joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.